and I was born on July 4th, 1925 in Middletown, Ohio. Today is February the 18th, 1991. I like to make this tape and dedicate it to my wife Tina, my children Janice, Tim, Joe, and Steve. And my grandchildren is Brian, Nathan, James, Sarah, and Michael. About 4 months ago, I was in our kitchen with Nathan and Brian and James, and Nathan said to me, he says, Grandpa, I got to raise my hand today in class, and it's for you being in the service. This has been Veterans Day. And Brian says, I also did the same thing. He says, I got and told my class my grandpa was in the war and that he got the Purple Heart. So after that I started saying, well, maybe I ought to put this in the tape and make it for those kids and also for the generations to come. I'm going to take you back 46 years ago, and I served in the United States Marine Corps in the Second War. I was trained in San Diego, California. I qualified as a sharpshooter with the M1 rifle, and my big thing was the anti-aircraft gun, and I specialized in the 40 millimeter. From my training, I was sent to Bremerton, Washington, and I was assigned to the USS Saratoga. It was one of the biggest and oldest aircraft carriers in the Second War. It had a crew of about 3,000 men. The Marines, I'll tell you, the Marines are on there. The Marines start, well, first the Marines are under jurisdiction of the U.S. Navy, and by the act of Congress, they are only allowed so many men. So it's a volunteer organization. The Marines first started on the ships with the Navy, and they was security, they was the guards, and they was the fighters for it. And that is when the ships was old wooden ships. They come together with cannons, and then they'd fight with swords and daggers and things like that. At that time, the Marines had a nickname of Leathernecks, and the reason for that is they had leather collars around their necks to keep them from getting cut with the when they was in the fight with the swords and daggers. From that day on, there has been a detachment of Marines on every battleship, every heavy cruiser, and every aircraft carrier, actually every aircraft carriers. They are security, they are guards, and they are gunners, even today. I'm going to take you back 46 years ago on February the 21st, 1945. And I would like to show you some pictures of the flight deck from above, and I'd like to show you about 8 points I'd like for you to remember. Okay, we are now looking at the flight deck of that. Now there's 8 points I'd like for you to remember, and this is here, one point is this is where the elevator is. This point here, and then from here over to here, and then we go over in front of the gun 5 here, not gun 5, but the 5-inch guns, and from there on up to the bow of the ship. And also remember the bow of the ship up there. And then this alongside here is the life nets. Now this is very important here. And then here starts the Marine guns. This is gun 1, gun 3, and gun 5. Gun 3 is my gun, and this is on the starboard side. And also I want on gun 3 there's a shell at the side. I want you to remember this. Then we go back to gun 5. Okay, and then gun 5. Then I want you to remember this here. This is very important here too. But we go all the way down the length of the ship here, and as we do, we see all the different guns, placements down through here, and then also up in here is the bridge. Okay, before we go into battle, I'd like to tell you about the 40 millimeter gun. There's two different guns. There's gun 1 and gun 3. The second one is gun 3, and that is my gun. Now on there you got 4 different barrels, and I was first loader on that. Now that's where there were 4 of us, 4 first loaders. We stood on the platform, and we was the one that threw the shells into the gun. Behind us was the second loaders, and they passed the ammunition up to us. Now I was on the left-hand side, the first barrel there, and stood right next to me was the gun captain. That would be Sergeant Moss. And right below him was a fellow sitting in a chair, and he had cranks where he'd crank it, and the barrels would go up and down. And on the other side of him was another fellow on the cranks, and he'd make the gun go back and forth. But in between the two guns was the automatic target where they turn the guns and do that. It's all automatic. Now, right there, our gun is pointing at 3 o'clock, and we always go by the clock. The bow of the ship in 12, our guns are at 3, and then the stern of the ship had been at 6 o'clock. Okay, now we are going to start the battle. Now, everything that's going to be said here can be verified, except one thing, and that is between myself and my maker. It was about 5 o'clock in the evening on February 21st that we had general quarters sounded. Now, general quarter means that everybody on the whole ship has to go to the battle stations. Our stations was again was the guns. So we went out on the guns there, and the loudspeaker says that bogies are approaching. Now, a bogey to us means an unidentified airplane. It could be our planes or it could be an enemy. So we stayed on our guns. We had our guns loaded and ready. And Moss, Sergeant Moss, he was the gun captain, standing next to me. He had the earphones and the speaker on, and he was in touch with the gun control up in the bridge there. The word came down to him, and he passed the word on to our gun crew that they were our planes coming in. So we were still at general quarters, but we was really at relief then because these are our planes. I was looking up and just looking around the sky, and I turned my head around about 5 o'clock. I looked up and I seen an airplane. It was at a high altitude, and I said, "That's a Jap." And I turned around because the captain of the guns, Sergeant Moss, was right next to me, and I hit him in the arm, and I pointed up to him. And as I turned back to look up, this Jap already made his 90-degree turn and was already starting his dive down on us. Moss at that instant had our gun from 3 o'clock around to 5 o'clock, and we start firing right at that moment, just a split second. I was told that we knocked that plane down, and that was Gun 3 knocked the plane down, and also that we credit with knocking 2 other planes down on Gun 3 there. As we was going on there, what we couldn't understand is why all these guns, which I showed you part of from the bow of the ship to the stern, all these gun crews and also the bridge, which had lookouts, why they didn't see this plane, or if they did, they just didn't identify it. But if I didn't see that plane, and if Moss didn't act as quickly as he did and had that gun firing on that, that Jap would have hit the Saratoga without a shot being fired, and also he could have picked his target wherever he wanted to hit at. In the bunch of planes that came in then after that, there was 15 to 20 planes involved in it. And they hit the Saratoga with 7 bombs and 5 kamikazes. Now the kamikazes, that's a suicide pilot, and that's the one that has the all high explosive. That's one of the dreaded things of the war. It's most accurate and dreaded because when a man's going to commit suicide, he's going to do everything in the world to come at you. We kept on fighting there, and the gun next to us was Gun 5. In other words, there was Gun 1, Gun 3 as ours, and then Gun 5, the Marines. Kamikaze hit that and killed all the fellows except one. There was one survivor off of that. As we was fighting on, about the second or third explosion, I got hit in the chest with a shrapnel. It cracked my rib and cut my chest muscle down and knocked me down. I got up to my knees, and I did. My life jacket was all split up, and like I said, it was cold there, and we had canvas jackets with fur lined it. That was all cut open, and there was blood all over the fur there. But I got up into my gun, and as I did, my gun was jammed. Now we had a piece to undo the guns when they got jammed. There was about 4 or 5 inches wide and about 7 or 8 inches long, and it was a U shape. And you put it over the clip and down to the places that bring the shells down to it. You relieve that, and then it goes back in the order there. I got it set just right, and I start firing again there. But in the meantime there, I was knocked down knocked down and off balance about 4 or 5 times. Our whole gun crew was. And each time our guns jammed, we had to get them back into firing orders. we kept fighting there for a while, and then about the 11th hit, one of the bombs came right in back of us. It was, I say approximately 6 or 7 feet back of us. Now that one was a big explosion, and it just it was all burning debris, just shot our gun crew. Every one of us was underneath that far end of the debris there. Myself, again, I was putting shells in my gun, and a big, about the size of $50 burning debris hit my hand and burned my hand pretty severe. Again, it jammed my gun, and again I had to get my gun back in fighting order again. But just prior to that, as I was telling you about Corporal Graham, he's the one who was on the site where he sat down and had the crank to elevate the gun. His neck got all burnt from all this debris, and he also had a wristwatch on him, and that one of the items hit his watch and stopped his watch, so he's got a souvenir right today told exactly what time it was. With this 11th explosion and so near to us, it caused a big wall of fire, and the fire came right over to our guns, and myself, I could reach over to the deck and touch the fire. That's how close it was. So they gave us orders we had to abandon our gun. As we abandoned our gun, I was just getting down off the platform, and the last hit, the 12th hit, and it knocked me about 6 or 7 feet. I hit the bulkhead and then hit the deck. As I hit the deck, I got up, and there was a fellow yelling for help. And I looked up, and there was a sailor caught in an air vent, and the vent was about maybe 24 inches wide and 16, 18 inches high. And I went to reach up to help him, and I did reach up there, but my rib and my side hurt me so much I couldn't do anything, and besides I couldn't pull it anyway. I thought maybe if I got something to pry it with, and I went to get something to pry it with, but as I did, I ran across John Parisi. Now I'm going to back up, I'm going to come back to John just a minute, and I'll go back to the sailor again. As I seen John Parisi, I forgot all about that sailor in there, and I felt real bad. A day or so afterwards, when I was in the hospital, I said I couldn't help him. If I did find something to pry it with, I couldn't got him out, but it hurt me because I didn't tell someone else, but I just forgot him. But I'm going back to John Parisi again. Now John was, I tell you about the outside of the shell, the side of the ship of the gun there. John Parisi had a rope, and he was over the side. And he was over the side up to his neck. His neck was the only thing showing. And as I ran over to John, John says, "Should I go down?" And before I thought or did anything at all, there's a loud, clear no came from me. And I looked around, I didn't see anyone, so someone yelled at me, but I don't know who it was. And I said, "John, come on up." So I helped John up, and we got John up, then we went to the life nets. Okay, and in the life net there was about 30 or 40 fellows in there. And the first one we've seen was Corporal Gaston. And Corporal Gaston was yelling. He was right next to us as we came. He yelled, he says, "Is anyone hurt or wounded or anything?" And I said, "Yeah," I said, "I'm hit." So they got me and put me up on the life net. And Corporal Gaston and Corporal Graham and the lieutenant, they worked on me there. Now, all this time, that wall of fire was coming. And it just kept coming close to us, and we was trapped there. And all we had was either the fire or the ocean. So he was all getting ready to abandon the ship there. But before we go on a little bit further, on up in the nets was Sergeant Moss again. And I didn't see this, but they was telling me about him, where all these fellows laying down, and he was giving instructions on how to go overboard, how to abandon the ship there. And now the ship was going at full speed to get away from the Japs there, and the ship was wounded, crippled, and it was listing, and we was going as fast as we could, and the ship was going up and down. Now the ship could have been just going up and down 10 feet, the bow, 20 foot or 30 foot, I don't know that. But he was telling the fellows up in the life net, he says, "Now when the ship goes down," says, "that's when we go over." So that was the word about Moss. But then I'm getting back to the three guys, Corporal Gaston and Corporal Graham and the lieutenant. And the lieutenant was in command of the thing. In other words, he's going to tell it when to go over and all. And he must have said something I didn't hear, but Corporal Gaston was kneeling over me, and he said real determinedly, he says, if we go over, he says, we're taking you with me. He's pointing it to me. And at that time,